Morning. It is truly a wonderful day when everything and everyone that Donald Trump believed in is leaving him. It truly is a beautiful day when the big boys on Wall Street are mocking Donald Trump. And so let me start with I want to start first with the mock taco conversation. And so let's go right into it. So, as you know, Donald Trump has this contemptible habit of announcing that he is going to slap on what are actually unlawful tariffs, import taxes on various countries based on some whacked out formula he makes up or his mood or what he had for breakfast, it appears. And then he reverses himself, sometimes without telling even the Treasury Secretary or his Secretary of Commerce or really anyone. And a lot of us suspect, and it might actually be true, that some of this is deliberately or even inadvertently helping his friends who get tipped off on his plans. And so, I hold that out as a possibility because it seems likely. And at the same time, I also know, and now we know, that Wall Street has already decided what to do instead of getting whiplashed by his various announcements. And it's now called the taco trade. Why taco? Trump always chickens out. TACO. And this is swirling around in the media and on the trading desk. And so someone had the intestinal fortitude yesterday to put this in his face. And he went ballistic. Because here's the deal with someone like Donald Trump, the king of the jungle is the person who has the most money. And collectively, the cool kids on Wall Street, the traders on Wall Street, having worked off of a trading desk, let me tell you, the people who are traders are mostly men, not always. And this is a generalization, but they're the former jocks, the hockey players, the guys who are able to bond with other men. Donald Trump doesn't have a lot of friends. So the buds out there on Wall Street, and I know you've seen the movies like The Wolf of Wall Street, but that's about, you know, people trying to game the system. And you've probably even seen Boiler Room about those corrupt brokers who set up these phone banks inside of what used to be maybe a boiler room to trick people out of their money. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your trading desk, whether it's the buy side, the trading desk, whether it's the buy side at a place like I worked, like Fidelity Investments, or the sell side, like a Goldman Sachs, or what have you. These guys are pretty fucking cool, and they know it, and that's that. And they know what they're doing. Sometimes they don't, but it's a pretty flippin', intense business, guys and gals, to be able to be trading huge amounts of money and not fucking that up. And as you know, Donald Trump bankrupted a casino. So having the big boys and gals on Wall Street laugh at him is not something he wants to hear. So let's hear this reporter. And who do you think had the intestinal fortitude to ask him? It happened to be a female reporter asking him about the taco trade. And my God, she hit a nerve. Enjoy, my friends.
Analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out?
Chicken out.
Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And I said you have to open up your whole country. And because I gave the European Union a 50% tax tariff, and they called up and they said, please, let's meet right now. Please, let's meet right now. And I said, okay, I'll give you till July 9. I actually asked them, I said, what's the date? Because they weren't willing to meet. And after I did what I did, they said, we'll meet anytime you want. And we have an end date of July 9th. You call that chickening out? Because we have $14 trillion now invested, committed to investing when Biden didn't have practically anything. This country was dying. You know, we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. I went to Saudi Arabia. The king told me, he said, you got the hottest, we have the hottest country in the world right now. 6 months ago, this country was stone cold dead. We had a dead country. We had a country people didn't think it was going to survive, and you ask a nasty question like that. It's called negotiation. You set a number. And if you go down, you know, if I set a number at a ridiculous high number and I go down a little bit, you know, a little bit, they want me to hold that number, 145% tariff. Even I said, man, that really got up. You know how it got? Because of fentanyl and many other things, and you added it up. I said, where are we now? We're at 145%. I said, whoa, that's high. That's high. They were doing no business whatsoever, and they were having a lot of problems. We were very nice to China. I don't know if they're going to be nice to us, but we were very nice to China. And in many ways, I think we really helped China tremendously because, you know, they were having great difficulty because we were basically going cold turkey with China. We were doing no business because of the tariff, because it was so high. But I knew that.
Okay. I'm calling this the MOCKO taco because, guys, it totally pissed him off. But the timeline is insane. So yesterday, after he freaks out and spins out a bunch of lies after people didn't think America was left for dead 6 months ago, our country was doing great. The big problem around inflation, Biden was bringing that down. And of course, we had the issue because of bird flu around the eggs. There was inflation. We were working on that. Donald Trump is actually now crashed our credit rating. Grocery, his favorite word, have not gone down. There are layoffs. He is cutting budgets that affect our jobs across universities and states and good causes. And I'll tell you about that in a moment. And he is being mocked around the world and at home. And he tries to defend himself midday yesterday, but you're not going to believe what happened next. It's fucking amazing. And I would like you to see when the news broke yesterday, how Laura Ingraham on Wall Street News reacted. Because if you thought Taco Mocko is bad, wait till you hear about the court, the U.S. Court of International Trade. Yes, it's a thing. Basically, what they did to all of the tariffs he put in place, but a small amount. Basically, almost every flippin' tariff that Donald Trump tried to impose. Let's hear what happened to it. But first, let's watch Laura freak out while she is talking on television on Fox News right now.
Senator, we just got breaking news. Senator,
I'm sorry, when I say right now, I mean this was yesterday. So shortly after, a few hours, actually it was yesterday evening. So midday was when Donald Trump was getting needled about the taco trade. Then yesterday evening, while many of us were having dinner, here's Laura Ingraham.
Senator, we just got breaking news.
They're building
Senator,
ships.
yeah, Senator, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We just got other breaking news. The big news tonight. A federal court just blocked the majority of Trump's tariffs. The Court of International Trade saying he overstepped his authority under an International Emergency Economic Powers Act. This was, I believe, the 3-judge panel. There was a Reagan appointee, a Trump appointee, and a Biden appointee on this particular panel. This was kind of widely predicted among those who study trade closely. So those European tariffs blocked. Senator, your reaction?
You mean that...
So let's just stop before we go on. So Laura says this was expected, right? Because it was. I'm going to break this down in pieces, and I want you to notice how Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, who has a law degree, I believe, from Harvard, and you can check it out, that he is grappling with a way to find his words right now because one, he doesn't want to insult the man whose ring he kisses and toes he washes. Um, and he also is a lawyer. And so he's having some of this, I would call it code switching, where he's trying to play the down home Southern guy, holy moly, I don't know anything guy. And yeah, he went to, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. He went to Oxford College. So he is, I believe, a Rhodes Scholar and UVA, fabulous law school. So this guy pretends he's this aw shucks and kisses up to Donald Trump. He's actually a brilliant man who is sitting there trying to figure out how to control his thoughts and his words when he sold his soul a long time ago. So it's hard to go with truth. Like the deal is, if you go with telling the truth, you don't have to have those pauses on your face, unless, of course, you're representing someone's interest and you're thinking, what can I say that would help them that still is accurate? So he's processing this. Now, what is she saying? And then we'll continue. What Laura is saying is this U.S. Court of International Trade that's in Washington, D.C., it's a trial court. It ruled yesterday, there's 3 judges on the panel. These judges ruled unanimously yesterday that pretty much all of the tariffs that Donald Trump put in place, okay, this is on certain countries. We're going to set aside some of the tariffs on autos and steel and so on, but specific tariffs that he has been boasting about, like against China, for example, or against the EU, or generally against Canada and Mexico, those are halted immediately. Now, this is unusual. This was a lawsuit brought by some businesses. There's 2 lawsuits, one brought by a series of businesses that have been, a group of them that have been impacted, like a liquor importer and others. Then there was another one brought by numerous states. These converged together, these 2 lawsuits. And normally you've heard, I think you heard a lot on this show or other places, that plaintiffs will go in and say, listen, judge, I think we're going to win this case. I'm going to pull this off for 1 second. They say, I think we're going to win. So could you give us either a temporary restraining order, like you go in immediately and ask for that, or you go in and you don't immediately get your TRO, but you ask for what's called a preliminary injunction. And that means, listen, I know, judge, you want to hear the whole case and all the evidence, but for now, could the status quo be, let's put this on hold, no tariffs, right? So they went in asking for that. That's what you usually ask for, just putting on hold. And you know what the panel did? They ordered what's called a summary judgment in their favor. This basically means no trial, you fucking win. You win. You win. Case over. So time out. None of these tariffs, Donald Trump went beyond his authority under a particular congressional statute. Fuck you, Donald Trump, is what the court said. Stop almost every single tariff that he established on Liberation Day, so-called Liberation Day. Stop the retaliatory tariffs. Stop the tariff on, Mexico, China, Canada, blah, 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 Europe. Stop, 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 stop. Literally, that's what they fucking did after Donald Trump got the taco MOCKO. So this is huge. So I'm going to tell you 2 things right now before we listen to this. 1, you might be saying, why did they do this? And 2, is anything left? So the answer to the first question, we'll get to. Why did they rule this way? There's 3 things. Why did they rule this way? Are any of the tariffs survive? Yes, some did. We'll talk about this, but not many. And the third is, now what? Let's start backwards. The now what is, Donald Trump has already filed an appeal. The appeal, I believe, the appeal will go to what's called the Federal Circuit Court. It's different than the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. This Federal Circuit Court of Appeals is for cases that come up from these unique courts, like the U.S. Court of International Trade. And from there, it can go up to the Supreme Court. Okay, so right now, Donald Trump has had all of it, the table cleared. It's like they stood up and took the whole game board and it just flies away, almost all of his tariffs. And now the reasoning. And then we're going to get back to this reaction from Senator John Kennedy. The reasoning is that Donald Trump anchored, well, let me back up. The US Constitution, yes, Article 1, the one that deals with Congress, gives Congress the power to impose taxes, including tariffs, import duties, imposts, and so on. That is a congressional prerogative, period. End of story. Except there was a law passed called IEPA. And IEPA, IEEPA, which was enacted in the late 1970s, I believe. I think it was 1977. We'll get the date in a moment. So IEPA has been around, not quite, half a century. Maybe it's been around, 50-ish years, around close to 40-ish years. So IEPA is a statute that stands for the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, IEPA. And it's a statute that does a lot of things, but it was specifically designed to have Congress delegate to the president if there were certain situations like an economic emergency, like a war or some other official economic emergency. And sometimes it gets very detailed, right? So under certain conditions, it's a pre-grant from Congress of a piece of the authority for the president to act quickly. And typically, it's not been used to create, by the way, import taxes or tariffs. What IEPA has been used historically for is sanctioning countries with whom we are at war. So during the Iraq War, for example, I'm thinking the first one goes back to, you can think about Saddam Hussein, and you can think about during the Iraq War, there were sanctions put on certain doing business with companies, for example, or the government of Iraq. And I know this because a lot of the white collar crime cases, some of them that we look at, involve the question of whether when someone violates a sanction, is that considered a violation? When there was a conspiracy to of people to trade with businesses in Iraq, and there was a question we looked at as to whether in one of these cases that we study, whether that was considered a conspiracy to violate a U.S. law. And the question was, is a executive order considered a law? And the reason why a sanction that a president enacts under the authority of IEPA is considered a law is because it's anchored in a congressional authority. Okay, so I've known about this statute for a long time. And so for many of us, and especially this court that unanimously told him you can't do it, none of us thought that Donald Trump invoking the IEPA statute, his economic emergency power to impose blanket and retaliatory, both the blanket and the retaliatory sanctions on countries could be authorized under this International Economic Emergency Powers Act. It didn't make sense, in part because when he was saying, well, they're ripping us off on trade, we have this huge trade deficit. Well, you can't just say we're just going to put a blanket tariff, a tax on all of your imports. It would, one, have to actually be like a trade imbalance that was going on for decades, is my understanding. But secondly, the other kinds of things have to be more targeted. You just can't do what he's doing, what he did. And we're going to look at that case in a moment. But before we get to that, let's go back again. And I want to start with Laura Ingraham at the beginning of this. Watch her. I'm not going to interrupt. We're just going to watch her and Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana react to this news. Let's go again.
Senator, we just got breaking news.
They're building
Senator,
ships.
yeah, Senator, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We just got other breaking news. The big news tonight. A federal court just blocked the majority of Trump's tariffs. The Court of International Trade saying he overstepped his authority under an International Emergency Economic Powers Act. This was, I believe, the 3-judge panel. There was a Reagan appointee, a Trump appointee, and a Biden appointee on this particular panel. This was kind of widely predicted among those who study trade closely. So those European tariffs blocked. Senator, your reaction?
you mean that a federal judge has intervened with the other two branches' ability to make policy? I'm shocked. That hasn't happened since yesterday.
5
it'll
minutes
be taken
ago.
up. It'll be appealed. I think it's pretty clear that the president has tariff authority. Congress gave it to him. Now you can debate whether that was a prudent move or not, but I think it's pretty clear that he has tariff authority.
Yeah.
And,
So this again, this
I think
was
it'll be reversed on appeal.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're going to go to the Supreme Court, Senator. It was a 3-judge panel, 2 Republican appointees on the court, 1 Biden appointee. And it was focused on the use of that IEPA statute, so that's where it was focused. But this is a long way out. This is gonna be challenging.
Well, sooner or later, the Supreme Court is going to have to address this. Those who oppose the executive branch and those who oppose the legislative branch and are seeking recourse in the courts are at some point going to dig up more snakes than they can kill.
Okay, come on, man. Come on. This is a huge loss. And no, it is not going to be reversed by the appellate court or the U.S. Supreme Court. There may be a few idiotic dissenters. I'm looking at you, Alito and Thomas. But I got to tell you, there's no way Donald Trump has a majority. In the meantime, thank God, this is huge. Yeah, we are still going to feel the effects of Trump's tariffs already, right? It's trade. We know that some shelves will be empty. We already know stores don't know what to do about buying for Christmas. But the good news on this is there's a reprieve. There is a hope for our economy. And someone said to Donald Trump, no, you cannot steal the power of Congress. And even though John Kennedy wants to bend over backwards and do, handstands for Donald Trump or jazz hands, woohoo, whatever he needs to do to entertain him, he will do, but it's not what the law says. And so I want to share with you just a bit of this decision. I had it on my screen. Sorry, guys. I want to share this with you. Let me open it and let's see if my computer will let me do this with you. And I want to share. It's a 49-page decision. And I don't think you're going to see this on a lot of shows. Oops. But you will. You will see it. I think I got to do it like this, guys. You will see it on mine because you can handle not all 49 pages in this short time, but you can handle looking at the legal stuff. Oh, crap. I'm having some trouble getting myself to be able to pull this particular file. So let's try again. I got it, guys. I can do this. Anyway, let me just trust me on this. And I'm going to tell you the language that I love because it won't pull up right now. So this was from yesterday at the U.S. Court of International Trade. And again, I told you there were 2 cases that came together. What's great is the businesses, VOS Selections, that's a liquor importer, Plastic Services and Products, that does business as Genova Pipe, Micro Kits LLC, something called Fish USA, and Terry Precision Cycling. These are a handful of businesses. And guess who they were suing? The USA. They were suing U.S. Customs and Border Protections. They were also suing Howard Lutnick, woohoo, and some others, right? And then we had a separate case brought together by the same the judges in the same court. This was Oregon, Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Illinois, Maine, Minnesota, Nevada, New Mexico, New York, and Vermont. Okay, so the judges consolidated these 2 cases together. And we had Gary Katzman, Timothy Reif, and Jane Rastani. 3 judges. We heard 2 Republican appointees, 1 Democratic appointee. And in that second case by all the states, they also, well, this case, they sued the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and so on. So we had, and also Customs and Border Protection, right? So we got a bunch of people being sued. And what I love about this decision is the very beginning, in the opinion, it's bracketed. And this is what, when I read this, I was jazzed. The court grants plaintiff's motion for summary judgment and denies plaintiff's motion for preliminary injunction as moot. So they decide that they're not going to rule on this, right, on those motions, but instead, here is the decision. The Constitution assigns Congress the exclusive powers to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, and to regulate commerce with foreign nations. The question in the two cases before the court is whether the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, IEPA, delegates these powers to the president in the form of authority to impose unlimited tariffs on goods from nearly every country in the world. The court does not read IEPA to confer such unbounded authority and sets aside the challenged tariffs imposed thereunder. So they set them aside. And I misspoke saying they granted the motions, but here, this is what it actually says, that plaintiff's motion for summary judgment are granted. That's what I said, granted. And their motions for preliminary injunction are denied as moot. So in other words, by granting the motions for summary judgment, they just won this case. This is it. So other than these little targeted tariffs that have been done over the years, whether it be on steel or some other products, those have stayed in place. But basically, that crazy Liberation Day declaration is dead. Taco MOCKO. And you know what I have to say? Eat it, Donald Trump. Eat the taco. Because guess what? Walmart ain't going to eat the tariffs that just got wiped out by this court. Now, if you want to read the entire decision of this court, you can. But it's wonderful because it's very detailed, going through the statute that he tried to hang these tariffs on and saying there ain't no hook for what you are trying to do here. Now, I'm having so much fun with this that I'm sorry to tell you that we have to talk about some tougher news out there in the world. We cannot forget what else is going on. So let me pivot right now to three other topics before we get to Crazy Town, because I have a doozy for you on Crazy Town. Our three other topics are things that we have been very concerned about: the attack on higher education, the ongoing war in Russia, the ongoing war Russia is waging against Ukraine, and also what is happening to harass and deny the rights of people who are immigrants in the United States. So I'm going to start with the last first. I just saw a clip of a unbelievable story of a woman who has been in our country, I think, close to 50 years. She's physically disabled, needs medication, and uses a wheelchair. And you want to hear what our government did? Let's listen.
This picture of their mother taken before it happened.
What was that like? Heartbreaking. She didn't get to say bye or anything to us.
Within hours of taking Alma into custody, immigration officials took her here at this detention facility more than 140 miles away, where she remains today. Records show Alma's current detention is because of a criminal conviction more than 20 years ago after writing bad checks worth $1,200, which she paid back. In response, the federal government revoked her permanent residency. But her family argues her detention is illegal because Alma is a U.S. citizen. While born in the Philippines, military records show her father, Lawrence Bowman, was an American citizen, originally from Illinois. This is the U.S. naval ship he served on during the Vietnam War when Alma was born in 1966. Alma's birth certificate shows he's the father. Her parents moved to the U.S. when Alma was 10. She's lived in Macon, Georgia, nearly 50 years.
Does she know anyone in the Philippines?
No, no one at all.
Would she have any support if she was forced to go?
Nope.
The rule of law has never seemed to be so meaningless.
Samantha Hamilton is an attorney with Asian Americans Advancing Justice, representing Alma. Until this past March, she says ICE allowed Alma to live at home and check in about once a year since 2020 while she worked to prove her citizenship.
What changed?
I mean, the only thing I can think of is the Trump administration wanting to remove people without respect to that person's individual circumstances, or how long they've been in this country, or their ties to this country, or their lack of ties to any other country, or whether they might even be a U.S. citizen.
Alma is one of at least 2,600 people held at immigration facilities.
Okay. I said she was an immigrant, yes, but she also is a U.S. citizen, she claims. I have no words for this. They apparently abducted her from her wheelchair and locked her up. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Okay, couple more topics before we get to the crazy town we deserve. Linda McMahon, our Secretary of Education. We thought that no one could be worse than Betsy DeVos, but then Linda McMahon entered the chat. Remember, she runs WWE, or did, with her husband, Vince McMahon. And let's hear what she has to say. It's flipping laughable what she is saying about higher education in this country. And my answer to her is, hell no, Linda. Let's do this.
Yet my tax dollars are going for about $9 billion right now. I understand a lot of that is for research, good research, by the way. And universities should continue to be able to do research as long as they're abiding by the laws and are in sync, I think, with the administration and what the administration is trying to accomplish.
What? I was with you with they do good research. And I was with you with the part about, if they follow the law. I'm not so sure when she says it's $9 billion of her tax dollars, it's not all her money. And I would also say she's ignoring the labor that people contribute back in the university setting. However, this part about as long as they are doing work in sync with this administration and its agenda, fuck you. No, that's not how this works. Is this what the libertarians voted for? Let's continue.
But primarily abiding by the laws. And when we looked at different aspects of what Harvard was doing relative to anti-Semitism on its campuses, they were not enforcing Title VI.
Okay. How many times do I have to say this, Linda McMahon? I am a Jewish woman. And let me just be clear about this. I'm a Jewish American. And I don't think people think that being Jewish is a faith tradition, but not exactly. The concept of faith comes more from I think the Christian tradition and other traditions. For me, for a lot of people, your Jewish identity is a heritage, an ethnicity. We did a lot of marrying in, etc. A culture. Even when people have converted or mixed married and all the things, it's a particular culture, it's a heritage, it's a memory, it's the history of persecution, it's all of these things. But it doesn't have to be a faith tradition. There are a lot of people who are agnostic or atheist Jews, okay? So get with that, number one. So let me just say this. I don't like myself when people like evangelical Christians who have their own tradition, their own culture, their own faith tradition, start trying to use what they think is anti-Semitism to shut down thought and speech at universities. I've said this before. And I am someone who welcomes speech of all kinds, even when I disagree with people. And let me tell you, that is why I speak with people who have very different views on women's rights, on abortion, on all kinds of things. And just like I have different views, I believe, of course, I've talked to you with you about two-state solution. I believe in a Palestinian state. I don't agree that armed resistance in the case of Palestinian liberation is justified. I know there are people who believe that. Do I have conversations with them? Yes, I do. Right? Do I think it's okay to block egress and access to buildings at universities? No, I don't think that's okay. And I don't need Linda McMahon, who is not a member of my culture, trying to use us. It is not good for the Jews. We are being used to do the most terrible things in this country, the university system. Fuck you, Linda McMahon. No, stop it. And I got to tell you, the vast majority of Jews voted Democratic, voted for Kamala Harris. If you look at the numbers, we did not vote for this. Some people did, but that is if you look at whether you're looking at white Jews or Jews of color. Our numbers are overwhelming, and especially white Jewish women. I average like white women voted for Donald Trump. Yeah, shame on those white women, shame on those white men, etc. But I want to speak to my culture, which is white Jewish women and Jewish women of color. All of us in my communities did not support this fascist, and we do not support what Linda McMahon is doing. I want to shout this from the rooftops. Okay, now I got one more thing before I get to Crazy Town, the Crazy Town we all deserve. You have to wait for that. Donald Trump acting like an idiot yesterday. This is before the news came down that he got slapped and all of his Liberation Day tariffs are pretty much quashed. This is Donald Trump once again trying to claim that this war that Russia waged against Ukraine is the fault of Putin and Zelensky and Biden, and he has nothing to do with this, acting as if he didn't promise to end it in 24 hours. Let's play this clip.
Trust President Putin.
In about 2 weeks.
Is Ukraine doing enough to get this peace?
I'd rather tell you in about 2 weeks from now.
Keep saying 2 weeks about President Putin. What is 2 weeks? Give us, what is the actual date? What is the timeline?
2 weeks or less, and if it's a little more at the time, I say, but, they're losing a lot of people.
You see those little dates up at the top, April 27th, May 19th. Today is May 28th. So 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Now we're still 2 weeks away.
Yeah, I love Brianna Keilar. She's always been good. Great host on CNN. And if I recall correctly, her husband either serves or served in the military. So she feels that she knows how awful war is and how important it is to have a strong military as a method to create peace, not wage war. Okay, guys. So now I just have to turn to Crazy Town. So let us play it. There's going to be a lot of hand waving and dancing for this one because it's batshit crazy. Okay. Guys. So here's the deal. What are you supposed to do when one of the worst people in the world is having his marriage put out before the entire DC press corps? When he, I think, may even have children and has a wife who may or may not be cuckolding him. And what are you supposed to do as a responsible, independent journalist like myself? Are you supposed to say, I'm just going to ignore it? Are you supposed to say, this is happening? Or are you going to do what I'm going to do, which is tell you this is a rumor that is flying around, but friends, it looks like it might be true. Okay, I have no flipping idea, but you need to know this. Stephen Miller, I think you know who he is. Stephen Miller, who is the fascist who works in the Trump administration, who is the architect of the absolutely, absolutely worst. Hold on. I'm sorry. He's architect of the incredibly terrible immigration policy. What we just saw delights him. He toasts situations where American citizens who he does not like, well, I shouldn't say that. Let me be more clear. He wants to deport millions of immigrants. He calls people who are here, who are undocumented, or people who are here with temporary protective status or green cards or permanent residency. He calls them illegals and he wants them gone. Okay, so we know that. But so I'm just going to say he's not someone who I support in any way. Now, I also want to let you know that a bunch of things just happened yesterday, the kind of in concert. One, Elon Musk, who has been criticizing over the past few days the Trump administration's big, beautiful bill. He's saying weird shit like that you're not supposed to say, like a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but it can't be both. That's idiotic. But he doesn't like this bill because he knows it increases the deficit. Well, Donald Trump wanted to shut that down. And all of a sudden, we hear that yesterday, Elon Musk's term working with the government is over. Now, they always claimed he didn't run Doge, but we know he did. And they say he's going back to run his other companies. Correspondingly, he had a rocket that blew up yesterday, but that's another story. So he's going to go run his other companies into the ground. And that's happening. Okay, so at the very same time, we have this weird ass news. And I'm going to share this for you because I need to let you know. Now, this is Gwen Schneider. I think you can see this. Good. This is Gwen Schneider. I actually know Gwen in real life. She worked on Tax March with me. And here's what she wrote. So let me just, she writes, I am not shit posting, folks. Stephen Miller, his wife, and Elon are wildly rumored to be in a throuple. That seems sketchy, okay? Now Miller's wife is leaving the Trump team to be with Musk, and literally, per the New York Times, Stephen is angrily subtweeting Elon Musk. Okay, so let's look at this. I think you can see this next page. We have someone else say, so Musk's out and he's taking Stephen Miller's wife with him. Do I have that right? And they say, meanwhile, Stephen Miller is fiercely subtweeting Musk on X. Okay, what the hell is going on? Well, what I'm able to see, I don't know if they were a throuple, but what I'm able to see is, you know how they put Katie Miller, Steve Miller's wife, smart woman of her own, skills, whatever. She happened to be working with, they were the two of them, like babysitting Elon Musk over at Doge. They were supposed to be the adults in the room. And then all of a sudden, it's Katie's also last day of service, and maybe her time is running out in terms of having a temporary appointment, but she's going with Elon Musk to his businesses. Now, I don't know if she's going with him in a romantic sense. That is the crazy rumor. But what is weird is when you go over, guys, because I am following this stuff because it is super weird. Now, I don't post on Twitter, but I do go over there and look on occasion. And so here's what's weird. Here's what's weird, because I did a little detective work here on this really weird news. Let me share this screen. This is Katie Miller's Twitter account. Yes, there's a blue check. Yes, she has 59,000 followers. And do you see, am I looking at the same thing? She has a rocket on her Twitter header. Yes, she does. And what is the first post she has from 12 hours ago? Doge is a way of life like Buddhism, Musk said Wednesday night of his imminent shift to focus to running his companies, adding that he believes he's built up a system that can survive longer term. What did Katie say? She retweeted him also 13 hours ago. Let me bump this up. As my scheduled time as a special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank Donald Trump. And she says something positive about Doge. So meanwhile, Stephen Miller is on his account attacking Elon Musk. Katie is praising him and has a rocket up. That's all I know. I don't know that this rumor about him leaving her husband for Elon Musk is true. But what I do know is yesterday Elon Musk was fired, and the announcement of him being fired or leaving government happened after Katie announced that her time was up. So I leave this with you. I say keep your eye on this, because again, when the worst person in the world is having trouble in his personal life, I think, as my friend Charlotte Clymer said, it's none of my business. It's only between Stephen Miller, his wife, Elon Musk's IVF baby mamas, and the DC press corps. It has nothing to do with us. And with that, my friends, I will leave you until tomorrow morning. Have a fabulous day.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show, where how come everyone, let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show.